Hi, welcome. So my name is Angela Bono, and I'm the Department Chair of Communication. And Alex asked if I knew anyone who could participate, and I know a ton, but quite frankly, I love talking about evaluation. And so I said, I'm just going to keep this one for myself, and I'm just going to invite myself and come along. So I'm going to go ahead. Is it okay if I share my screen? Okay. So maybe it's the communication presenter in me, but I thought it might be helpful for us all if I keep myself on task with an organized slide. Hopefully I'm showing the right one. I have a double. Oh, good. Okay. So I want to talk about some things here. So let me start from the beginning. Okay, so Jamal already mentioned that he mentioned the rubric, and so that is probably one of the most core and key components that you need to understand. There is a rubric, and this isn't just our opinion necessarily. It's not subjective. We try to make it as objective as possible. When you get your official date and the instructor that is assigned through Outlook, you should also see the rubric there. So you can actually pull it up at any time and see it before, and you'll see all of these things on there. So I wanted to highlight, I'm not going to talk about all of these, but these are the 4 areas that you are observed on in the classroom. So structure and goals, behaviors, which we heard a lot from Jamal, as well as, and under that follows the rapport and instructor and student rapport. Oh, it's on there, yay. And professional expertise. So some of these areas I can't go into, we all are from different areas. I don't know how to show expertise in all your areas. But what I want to highlight for my portion is how to be really structured in your presentation and make sure you emphasize the goals of the day. I thought if there is anything that you could make sure you can make changes today and get, you could actually see improvements when you have your evaluations, because I know my first one is on Thursday. So if there's anything you can see and use immediately, it's how to structure your class so that you get top-notch points in these areas. Okay, so first, when it comes to structures and goals, I broke this down. The rubric covers about 5 or 6 different check boxes, but I broke it down to 2 areas: classroom management and classroom instruction. Management to me looks like this. So this is what I am looking for. I know I'm going to have communication faculty watch this later. I wanted to be extra clear. Strong and clear start. I want you to walk in with confidence. Good morning, students. Let's go ahead and get started today. Submit that last text, put your phones away, and let's get to learning. Something strong and start definitive, where students have no way to understand that we are starting and they need to take it serious now. It could be you pulling up an agenda for the day. Some faculty really like agendas. I don't use a formal agenda, but I know faculty who do want to see a formal agenda. It could go either way, but even if you don't have a formal agenda, make sure you say, today we are talking about blank. Be very clear about what your day is going to discuss. Maybe if for me, I might say something like, today we are going to cover oral citations and how to use them in your speeches. If it's a rollover from another day, I might say something like, last time we left off on oral citations. Today we're going to finish that up with our activity. Some kind of structural element so that I know what you are doing for the day and they know what you're doing for the day. You don't have to write it as an objective on the board. You don't have to do that. That's more K-12 style. But you should at least, whether it's out loud, a slide on your PowerPoint or Google slide, or you write it on the board, somewhere you should address your goals for the day. Make sure you take roll. This is really important because you, as an evaluator, I'm watching you and I'm thinking, do you know your students? Do you have a flow and understanding of who's attending and who isn't? If you're not taking roll in some fashion, then I might question, do you know who stopped attending? Do they need to be dropped? Who might you catch with a starfish, to get them back in class? Maybe someone should be there but isn't. I don't know. You should really be managing your class. This is all part of classroom management. You don't have to take roll out loud if you don't want to, going down the roster. That's how I typically do it. But I've heard of people have a fun activity for the day. If they have time, they'll say, let's take roll today by everybody telling me your major, or let's take roll today by telling me what you did this weekend. Something to get people talking, or at least to say that they were here. Some people pass around a large sheet if it's a large lecture hall. That's all great too. Just make sure you are somewhere we can see that you addressed who was there. And then last, make sure that as you move throughout your day, part of classroom management is effective transition. So if you're moving from a lecture to an activity, you need to clearly state, okay, so we have wrapped up our discussion on oral citations, and now I want to give you a chance to practice it in group. So what I need to do next is, and then direct the students to now either count off to get into their group. Maybe you have assigned groups already in class. I frequently do. So I'll say, okay, so it's time to get into your group. And then they know to scatter and to get into their group. So they're going to now practice something. So when you have transitions, make sure they're really clear and you are, again, the person in control and managing the class. So that portion is that structural element, the classroom, the organizational part. The last thing I want to talk about is kind of what you're doing in the class. Yes, I'm looking at classroom management, but the other aspect of this area is what you're doing. So what content you're covering, not necessarily the expertise part, but this is how you teach. Jamal touched upon this. How are you teaching the students so that they learn? One of my favorite colleagues, well, I love them all, but she's a good friend too, Neely Hatridge, she has this amazing quote that she loves to talk about, and it's from Jen York Barr, and she says, the person doing the talking is often the person doing the learning. And it's sometimes we fall into the pattern of being the sage on the stage and we're lecturing and, we are the content experts. It makes sense. I expect a lecture. But at some point, to truly engage the students and to get them learning, we need them to do. We need them to talk. And so I wanted to give you some practical ideas of how you could do this in your class. If there is something that I have written down someone in terms of an evaluation, it's this. It's not having a variety of ways they are teaching students in a class session. So let me give you some tips. This is what I want to see. First, multiple instructional elements. I want to see a variety. You do not have to do all of these. Take a screenshot if you're here and you know you're getting evaluated, but I want to see some variety. Lecture, use the whiteboard, use a slide deck. Maybe you want to pause and show a video clip or like a YouTube or a TED Talk. Maybe you have charts and graphs to emphasize data. Maybe you have a news story that you hear. I do this all the time when I teach interpersonal and I hear news stories that relate to the topic, or if I see, Psychology Today has a fascinating relationship article, I'm bringing it in, so that this is in their everyday life, that they're going to encounter these concepts. Kahoot's a really fun quiz you can use online to start every day if you want, and it's kind of like an interactive experience. You can have handouts or pamphlets if that helps you out. You can even use something in your slides called Slido, and it's a live poll where students can whip out their cell phones and use a QR code and scan, and then they can get live polling. Maybe you want to ask them, how many of you have used oral citations in a speech before? Have you done this? I want to gauge this. And you can even use bar graphs or line charts, any type of question. So think of, especially if you have a large lecture hall, think about using Slido so that way you keep people engaged and interacting with you. But this is one of the things again, these two areas I'm about to tell you, instructional materials is one area I've commented on and marked down. And the other one is the last thing I'll share today, have a student activity. Again, if I make a comment and I mark someone down on anything, it's because they didn't have a variety of materials. It was just them talking for an hour and 25 minutes with a PowerPoint, and there was nothing else. Please, the easiest thing you can do today is make sure that you have an activity that applies the concept. An hour and 25 minutes is real boring if it's straight lecture. So break it up. And when I teach oral citations, I might then make them go break into groups, and I give them each a different type of source, like a newspaper, a magazine article. Another group gets a peer-reviewed journal article. Someone else is going to get a magazine. Every group gets a different one, and then they have to find a source or a fact or something in there, and then practice writing it together as a group. And then they have to present it as a group and get feedback. So it's not just me talking the whole time. Remember, the person who is talking is doing the learning. So get them doing something. This example here is getting them to move around. I've seen this in class where students or instructors use like sticky notes to help, brainstorm or get ideas. It gets students moving around so they're not sitting all the time. They're more likely to remember what they're doing too. So it's a great kind of keep people awake activity. Other things you can do, this is huge in communication. We do lots of group work. So, and you can do this, it doesn't have to be complicated. You can have them watch a TED Talk or pose an idea or a new concept. Have them talk to it. If you don't have the ability to move them around, do think, pair, share. Have them think to themselves what their response is, share to a next door neighbor, have them collaborate. What we find in a lot of classes is when students get a chance to talk to their peers, they're more likely to then volunteer when asked a question because they had a chance to talk to their group, confirm that their idea is correct, and that reduces a lot of communication anxiety and apprehension. So having them do these type of little group works, you actually are more likely to get engagement later on. So break them up into groups. And then I take it a step further. And this isn't just for communication. Have them speak. Have the students take over. It's okay. Have them report out what they thought about that TED Talk on your topic. Have them come up with an example scenario and have them share in class. These types of activities are so powerful. We know they're amazing learning tools. So that's why I, as a department chair, want to see an engaging activity of some sort, not to make your life harder, but because I know students are more likely to learn. And if they're learning, you're doing a great job, and therefore you're an outstanding instructor acing your evaluation. So there you go.
Thank you so much, Angela. That was such gold. And I have to say that quote has been haunting me for the last 10 years. I think about it and I talk about it all the time, but I never know who said it. So thank you. Oh, I wrote down the name, so I have it. Anyway, thank you. Any questions for Angela before we move on to our last speaker?